Hi everyone, welcome back, and I hope you're well. I want to, I want to follow on from the last video because since I recorded that and posted it, nothing hasn't really changed or calmed down in the world. If anything, it feels louder. Every day, there's more headlines, more division, more economic pressure, and definitely more uncertainty about where things are heading. And even if, like me, I don't really watch the news, but even if you don't actively watch the news, I guess you feel it. You feel it in conversations. You feel it in prices. You feel it in people's moods. And you feel it in the way everyone seems slightly more tense, than they used to be. And there's like a little background hum of instability. And I think it's important to say this clearly. If you feel heavier lately, it's not just you. You're not fragile. You're not weak. You're responding to an environment that is actually unstable. In the world at the moment, there's wars happening all over. There's a lot of economic shifts. There's a lot of job layoffs. There's a lot of political tensions. There's a lot of cultural arguments constantly playing out online. And that's not neutral information for us, for for a human nervous system. We weren't built to process a global crisis in real time every single day. For most of human history, your stress was local. It was where you lived. It was your next door neighbour. It was in your town, your village, your best friend, your family. Your immediate surroundings. Now your brain is trying to understand everything before you even have breakfast in the morning. you know, and of course you're tired. And here's where it gets tricky. You can't fully disconnect because, well, a lot of it plays out in real life. Bills are higher, housing feels uncertain, the future feels less predictable than it did, yes, 5, 10 years ago. So the answer isn't denial, it's boundaries. There's a difference between being informed and being immersed. I believe being informed, can be checking updates, say once a day, understanding the broader picture, making practical decisions accordingly. And being immersed means, this is me as well sometimes, being like scrolling endlessly on your phone, or people can be arguing in comment sections, consuming, the outrage as entertainment, letting your mood be dictated by every headline. An immersion it'll destabilize you. Not because you're weak, yes, because you're human. And something else that I've noticed recently, a lot of people are trying to secure themselves by speeding up, I guess, more productivity, more side hustles, more optimization, more urgency. It's like almost like the world feels shaky. So the instinct is move faster, earn more, control more. And I understand that, I do. But I guess, speed doesn't always create safety. Internal steadiness does. And that steadiness isn't loud. It's not boring. It's routines. It's simple habits. It's not overreacting. It's doing what you said, you do, even when the news is chaotic. It's strengthening your body, managing your inputs, saving what you can, building something small but consistent. That's resilience. Not arguing about everything. Not predicting, the collapse of civilization. Just quietly, fortifying yourself. And I think, that's a shift. Instead of asking, how do I make the world feel stable? You can ask, how do I personally remain stable in an unstable world? Because instability is normal. It always has been. We just have a front row seat to it all now. History tells you these things. Empires rise and fall, economies go through cycles, technology changes, it disrupts the societies, and they change. This is not new. What's new is the exposure. So maybe the goal isn't to feel calm about everything that's happening. Maybe the goal is to not let everything that's happening live, inside your body. You can care without carrying it. You can stay aware without absorbing it. You can build your own steady life in the middle of all the noise. And that might mean less input, more focus, smaller goals, adaptable routines or stronger routines, more time offline, more time in your actual physical environment. Be present. Touch something real, move your body, cook your favorite food. Try and have a face-to-face conversation, or read something slow, whether that's a book, a poem. Try and re-anchor yourself in reality, because the online world magnifies instability. Your immediate world is usually far more manageable. And if you're building something right now, a healthier body, a calmer mind, a small business, or a new routine, you're not ignoring the world. You're strengthening yourself within it, and that matters. You don't have to match the chaos. You don't have to panic at the same volume as all the headlines. And you don't have to carry all the global uncertainty on your chest all day or on your shoulders. You can zoom in. Today, this room, this task, this conversation. That's enough. The world may continue shifting. It will. Governments will change. Markets will fluctuate. Technology will accelerate, and we can see that every single day. At the moment, within the last five years, it's people will argue, but you can still build a steady internal base. And if you're doing that, if you're adjusting instead of collapsing, if you're showing up for your own life, despite the noise, you're not naive, you're intelligent. The world feels heavy. The world feels heavy right now. That's real. But heaviness doesn't have to turn into helplessness. You don't need to control everything, because you can't. You really can't control everything. You just need to stay upright. And if you're still here, still trying, still building, still choosing steadiness over panic, you're doing better than you think. The world might stay loud, but you definitely don't have to. All right.